This is your magazine, and this is your magazine on roids. That's right, your AR-15 Freedom Seed holders. And man, there are a lot to pick from, which is why today we're talking all things magazines, the parts, the pieces, the features, the mag capacities, which is scary, along with mag accessories and a few tips to keep them on the JOB for decades to come. So let's go. Hey guys, Randy here with AT3 Tactical, talking today about your magazine from its conception back in the 1800s to these magnificent specimens that we see here today. Today you have so many 5.56, 223 AR-15 mag options out there, each with their own little take on design and features, but what do those design and features offer you beyond some eye candy? Or how do you get the longest life out of your mag? Well, let's start right at the beginning. We're gonna gut one of these bad boys open and we'll take a look at magazine anatomy. All right, first up you have your magazine body, the housing, and there are mostly two types. You have metal, which is aluminum, some steel as well. You also have poly or polymer magazines. In some circles, your magazine choice, it might say a lot about you, but for the majority of us, we're just looking for something that's durable, that's reliable, and it matches my mission set, even if my mission set is just a weekend range goer. That said, there are pros and cons to both the metal and the poly, but in the end, whether you're going metal or plastic, if you want to make the decision super easy, go with the most popular ones, the DuraMags, the PMAGs. They've been around for decades. They've been proven by shooters for decades. They just work. As far as aluminum or steel magazines, they do tend to be more durable and bulletproof when it comes to that heavier wear and tear, but when they dent or they bend, they kind of stay that way. Polymags though, they have a little bit of give, a little bit of flex. So you'll probably see it crack before anything else in those same harsh conditions. If you're thinking there's going to be a difference in weight here, it's really not that much. The DuraMag, this aluminum one, is about 4 ounces. Gen 2 PMAG I have here, about 4.7 ounces. So if you think that's something that you can actually feel, then I know which magazine you should go with. Otherwise, other features are out there to help with your decision. We'll get into that just a bit later. Most of your metal mags probably won't have too many thrills on them or about them other than that universal guide tab along the back. But like I said earlier, they can take a beating, and actually, doesn't that sound bring back some memories to some of you? It's your poly magazines where you'll see the most of the ergonomic designs, various gradients and types of grip, and of course, all the colors you could imagine. Other notable mag body features. Here you have the mag catch well, or it's a universal notch that your mag catch rests in when it's fully seated. Up top here you have your feed lips, hot lips, depending on your style. Basically, there's a choke point or tapered point that forces the rounds into single file, which is why your follower has a large raised surface on one side, because together only one round is allowed up at a time. Okay, next is your magazine base plate, the floor plate. I gutted this one to show you a little better, but really that's all the purpose for it is to keep the guts in, the spring and the follower inside the body. If it's on the AR-15 magazine market today, it will have a removable floor plate to allow you access inside for maintenance and repair. Some can be a little more tricky than others to pull off, but most of the poly mags, they make it really easy with a little push button release. DuraMags though, they need a little prying and some leverage down below, but you can easily get them off. All right, so now we're on to a little more interesting part of your magazine. It's the follower. It's named so because it follows the rounds upward. It pushes them with the help of the spring evenly as a single unit until there's no rounds left. And then that small little space here in the back end of the follower, that is what engages and lifts the bolt catch when there's no rounds left. In turn, that catch will stop and hold the bolt open. Today, I'd bet that it's pretty hard to find an AR-15 magazine that doesn't have these anti-tilt followers in there, but there was a time when followers didn't have all that drapery underneath of them, but instead looked like this. Well, the problem with that design is that it doesn't always push your rounds evenly upward as a single unit, meaning the thing would tilt and the rounds would enter the chamber all kittywampus, or just a failure to feed altogether, but mostly that failure to feed issue. 2-cent history lesson here. We started to see anti-tilt followers in the Vietnam War era, and then sometime around '04, good old Marine Sergeant Fitzpatrick and his Magpul company, they came out with their self-leveling follower, which still today pretty much dominates the market in this space. Oh, one last thing about followers. Don't get caught up in buzzwords like self-lubricating, because really, that just is a fancy way of saying smooth plastic that stays smooth with some regular maintenance. All right, here's a good one for you. It's your follower spring, and it's a spring, so you know someone in our industry will re-engineer this guy 6 ways from Sunday, and you'll already see it come across in things like chrome lined or extra power. But in reality, the springs of the old are still on the job decades later, and in general, a new spring is relatively cheap, like 10, 15 bucks max. So if you're replacing one, don't waste a ton of time here. Choose a standard spring and move on. But remember, springs will vary in their length depending on the magazine capacity, 10, 20, 30, so on, so don't get the wrong one. All right, so we got that out of the way. Let's now walk through some magazine features, the different types, and that hairy conversation about round capacity. So on that topic of capacity first, you've got mags ranging anywhere from 5 rounds to well over. Outside of that, your most common are 30 rounders, unless you live in certain states. Then 10 rounders are the next most common. Who knows what this legal round capacity will look like in 5 years, but where we sit today, states can and they do change their regs and policies at any time, sometimes overnight, so stay on top of your state's regs. So that means more than 95% of the time your magazines, if they are advertised for AR-15, M4, M16, 5.56, 223, it's going to fit inside your mag well. Granted, there are some that do it better than others, probably why the DuraMag and the PMAGs of the world are at the top of the list, but you're looking for a snug fit with little to no wiggle room, but still able to fall out of the mag well with the help of gravity. There is absolutely also a part that has to do with this, with the quality of the poly bodies, the quality of the spring, the quality of the followers. Again, probably why the popular remain most popular. As for the features of your magazines, we've already touched on those textures, grips, and so on your poly magazines. But beyond that, you have windowed magazines for a quick round count, or even completely translucent guys, like this Lancer mag here. It also has metal hot lips. So you might also see some floor plates with a little extra material, mostly for tactile indexing points, maybe a wider base or to stand on. I did come across one interesting feature on the newest generation of PMAGs. It's this over travel stop tab on the back, and I can honestly say that I've never heard of magazines having an over travel issue, specifically because all of them are going to be limited by how far they can go in by the bolt catch. All right, let's talk about some maintenance, life expectancy of your magazines real quick, hot and heavy. Can't say that there's a defined number of rounds before your springs start failing, but chances are you might only need to change your spring a few times throughout your entire life. Maybe not at all. This depends on how much you shoot. That said, the springs wear by expansion and contraction, not being in a fixed position. So if you don't shoot a whole hell of a lot, don't worry about your spring. But again, your follower is probably not one that you're going to see yourself replacing too often, especially if you open them up at least once a year to clean them. Feed lips, they do wear, they bend, they break. That typically means that you're DXing your entire mag or taking it offline for a new one. Speaking of decommissioning mags, if you find a crack in your poly body, it's probably time for a new one. Metal mags, dented, if they're interfering with your follower or your follower travel, maybe kick it to the curb. All right, so we're almost there, but we've got a few magazine accessories and a few tips to chat about first before we get out here. First up, accessories like Magpul's flagship product, the Magpul, which is a magazine assist. Basically, it's a little rubber cover for the bottom of your mag to make it easy to pull out of your kit. You'll probably see a couple different takes on these magazine pull tabs, but this is a space, again, where Magpul remains dominant. So your base plates, your floor plates, they do come in a couple different varieties, some with wider bases, maybe for indexing points, thinner profiles. Magpul has their Ranger plates, which also serve as a magazine assist. And unfortunately, we also have magazine accessories like your magazine capacity limiters and pin and locks for limiting your magazine round count. Yes, they do exist on the aftermarket magazine parts for those of you who stocked up on 30 rounds and now are in a non-compliant state. It's silly, I know, but they're out there. Guys, of course, we have to talk about the 22 conversion kits, the 9mm conversion kits that are on the market for your mag wells. I've got to say this, if you have an AR-15, you don't have a conversion kit, it's a bolt and a magazine and a hell of a lot of fun. You're missing out. Oh, we got one last accessory. If you want to call it that, it's colors and designs. That's right, you can find them in all kinds of colors, either from the manufacturer. Some people laser engrave them, wrap them after the fact. They're smoked out, they're clear. Shameless plug here, AT3 Cerakote's Gen 2 PMAGs in Magpul colors if you're interested. So here we are at your magazine tips that some of us here at AT3 we've picked up over the years. 1, keep your mags loaded and don't worry about the spring. 2, I use different colors and mag capacities to help designate between my rounds. 5.56 goes in a full 30 round, 300 blackout, they go in 10 round, because you'll have a bad time if you accidentally load a 300 blackout in your 5.56 chambered barrel. 3, lighter isn't always better, nor is a tight fit. You do want enough weight to assist with your mag drop, but you do want too tight of a fit where gravity can't take over and drop it. 4, if you're having feeding issues and you narrow it down to your magazine, it might be time to replace or repair the spring or the magazine altogether. 5, this is a big one, don't lube your mags. All that does is attract more dirt and grime. Let that super slippery, self-lubricating plastic do its job. Tip number 6, we all eventually fall victim to, and that is get yourself a bunch of mags, because one is never enough, and later a dozen won't even be enough. So best part is we're talking about 10 to 30 bucks here for new ones. So shop around, try them out, see what fits, and then latch onto your favorite. Oh, one more tip. Next video over here, it's pistol grips, and it's not just a grab one and go. There's a lot to consider in your pistol grip department, but we hit it quick and in depth over here, so check it out.